स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of Ramakrishna, the great master of Leela Prasanga by Shardanand Maharaj. We will now first go into the introduction part for the divine incarnation as spiritual sadhaka or spiritual aspirant. In that particular portion, we were looking into the heading attitude of a sadhaka in incarnation. Speaking about the incarnations, Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling the divine incarnations, their compassionate minds become completely absorbed in the struggle to gain complete control over that power. Thereby, they ascend to higher and higher planes of consciousness and remain there as long as they like, in order to teach the people of all classes and conditions, from the highest to the lowest, how to attain to those higher states of realization and become endowed with peace. So, two mighty streams, those of sadhana and of compassion, are always seen to flow side by side in their lives. The compassion of these incarnations increases 100-fold by a comparison of their own condition with that of the ordinary human beings. No one, however, knows the source of this infinite compassion of theirs. It must be inborn. Nothing further can be added to this. Let us quote an illustration cited by the master. We can get an iota of what this compassion of the divine being is if we see the kindness and service and the love and the attachment of the mother towards the baby. Our own mothers, you could see how they could shower their love and affection and their compassion and their kindness on us without any reward, without any desire. There may be a tinge of selfishness because that particular child is my child, but they don't want anything in return, self sacrificing. So, when we see the compassion of these divine beings, divine incarnations, we can get an idea of what compassion, real compassion is. So, just to give an example, just like here Shardanandaji Maharaj is mentioning, that particular compassion, that quality compassion is inborn in the divine incarnations. So, to know what that compassion is, you can just watch your own mother. All the mothers will be compassionate, will be very kind to their children. So, you can get an inkling of what, because this is hundredfold or thousandfold or millionfold more than the kindness of mother or father or anybody for that sake. Compassionate, the compassion. But to give an example what this quality is, I took the example of the mother's kindness towards the child. That's why here Shraddhanandaji Maharaj is telling the compassion of these incarnation increases a hundredfold by a comparison of their own condition with that of the ordinary human beings. No one, however, knows the source of this infinite compassion of theirs. It must be inborn. Nothing further can be added to this. Let us quote an illustration cited by Master Ramakrishna himself. If we take the example given by Ramakrishna himself, we can understand it better. And what is that beautiful example? Ramakrishna tells a wonderful story. Let us go through this fine story. Three friends went for a walk through a field. In the middle of the field, they saw an area enclosed by a high wall. Sweet sounds of music, both vocal and instrumental, were coming out of it. Attracted by the music, they wished to know what was going on within. They went round the wall and found that there was not a single entrance in it. What could they do? One of them somehow procured a ladder and climbed up the wall, while the other two stood below. This first man got up on the wall and was beside himself with joy on seeing what was happening within. He laughed loudly out of joy. He laughed loudly and jumped into the enclosure. He could not wait even to tell the others two standing below, his friends, close friends, what he saw within, what was happening within. They thought, our friend is a fine man. He did not even tell us once what he saw inside. However, that may be, we have to see what is inside. Then the second of them climbed up that ladder. The moment he got to the top, he also, like the first, burst out laughing and jumped within. What was the third man to do then? He climbed up that ladder and saw the mart of bliss within. He saw that mart of joy, mart of bliss within that enclosure. But what did he do? He burst out laughing and wanted to jump inside. When he saw it, his first thought was to jump within and join it, join that bliss. Who can withstand? Who can control? Nobody can do it. It is so much of joy going on within. He too wanted to jump in and mingle with that bliss. But he checked himself, thinking, if I now join it, the public outside, so many people, my kith and kin, my village men and other people are there suffering. They are in so much of pain. I should tell them that there is this wonderful joy Why are you suffering? Come, let us all go there, free of cost, nothing to be paid. Come, let us everyone enjoy this bliss. So he checked himself, thinking, if I now join it, the public outside cannot know that there is a place here for the enjoyment of such bliss. Should I enjoy it alone? Thinking so, he turned back and came down to the field. Then he began to proclaim to one and all, to whomsoever he happened to see, listen, there is a mart of bliss here. Come, let us enjoy it together. He thus took all the people with him to join the mart of bliss. You see now, just as we cannot find out the cause of the third friend's inclination to share the enjoyment with the many, so also we cannot point out why the desire to do good to humanity is present in the incarnations from their very childhood. Now, here the beautiful analogy, the comparison with this story. So within us too, that infinite joy, infinite bliss is always present. So when we give up this external, puny, very little income compared to that internal joy, which is infinite, it's very, 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 very minuscule, very small. So this infinite joy, infinite security, infinite peace is within us. Some people realize it, they don't even want to tell others, share it with others. They get the joy and merge in it. Other people saw and they thought, oh, he has got it so much of enjoyment, so he has gone into it. They too will try, but it will not be a big inspiration. But some people, God knows what is there in their heart. When they see this, they come back to share that joy with others and tell others and also take others into this. So those people, that quality for sharing their joy, they have sacrificed that joy. Like others, he could have also jumped in and enjoyed that mart. You cannot withstand when you have the vision of the Lord, when you have the direct experience of the Lord, the joy you get is incomparable, infinite. So you cannot withstand it. You will simply rush and fall into it and merge in it, into that immortality. Nobody can withstand that. But some people, they have so much of compassion, there's so much of desire to share it with others, to help others. So much of desire in them to bring other people to this joy too. So the highest compassion whoever has, the large-heartedness, the unselfishness, the sacrificing nature are called the Avatara Purushas. And below them, mediocre and somewhat, they have the desire to come and help others, not to the extent of the Avatar Purushas, are the one who are called Ishvara Kotis. And our gurus who have given us initiation, they are also like that. They have not only got that joy for themselves, but they want to share it with others. They have not only shared that joy through the form of mantra, giving the spiritual initiation to us, they have also taken a big chunk of our sins upon them and they suffer so that we may go and enjoy that bliss bereft of the sins and sufferings. So you can understand how much compassionate, how much unselfish our gurus are. I've told on the day of Guru Purnima that our gurus or any gurus who have given spiritual initiation and taken the responsibility of their disciples, they cannot get liberation until every disciple they have initiated will first get liberated and get that joy. So you can see the amount of unselfishness, amount of kindness towards the living beings. So another example also given by Ramakrishna in another place, maybe it may come here too, is the example, suppose you can count Some 5 or 6 children are there. The mother will give them very beautiful fruits, very tasty fruits. Let us imagine it is mango, the tastiest mango. Now, most of the children, what they do is they go into the hiding. They will not show it to anybody else. So they will eat it in such a way that nobody will come to know that they have eaten it. They will even wipe their mouth of any markings of that mango remnant on their face so that others should not imagine that he has taken such a good fruit and not shared with them. And they come out silently and go do all their activities. They alone will enjoy it in a selfish manner. So such kind of people are called Jivatmas, the ordinary living beings like us. We are all ordinary living beings. But if you develop that quality of compassion and kindness and want to share everything, then you too can become Ishvara Koti. So then Ramakrishna gives the example of another person in that group. The moment mother gives him that beautiful, wonderful, sweet mango, the tastiest mango, what will that child do? It will take the child, break it into smaller pieces, share it with his friends, give it to everybody, and he will find joy in the joy of others. He will also enjoy it very little, but he will share it with others. So, this kind of people who have that compassion to share it with others, this quality of sharing, I'll be always telling the parents to teach their children this quality of sharing. Sharing is a very, very great. So, you can see the sharing quality. The person becomes just like a Ishvara Koti or the Avatara, sharing with others. So, from the childhood, we have to teach the children how to share with others. In olden days, there would be these joint families, and so they were bound to share with others. And this quality of sacrificing, quality of sharing with others, helping others, and also getting help from others, they were protected. And in turn, they would be also protected. They would protect others, and they would be in turn protected in that family. Everybody would be working for others, everyone else. But now it is the nucleus family, at the most 1 or 2 child. They become so selfish. The children are, you need not teach them. It is in the selfishness is in the genes. Revered Ranganathanandaji Maharaj used to mention from some great author's book. Nowadays, you know that genetics and this microbiology has grown so much, where they have made a lot of researches on the chromosomes, the genes, and the genetic patterns. There, maybe in the 1990s or 80s, the book had come in that this particular term called selfish genes was given, and Ranganathanandaji Maharaj used to go thoroughly into it, and he used to explain that in all his lectures. Selfish genes. So it has gone deeper into our psyche, it has gone deeper into our body and genes, chromosomes. We don't want to share with anybody. We are so selfish, everything for myself. So that is inborn tendency. Nobody needn't teach a monkey how to climb a tree. Should anybody train a monkey how to climb a tree? Should you give a ladder to the monkey to climb the tree? No, it's inborn tendency in them. It's automatic. So likewise, here this selfishness, not sharing with others, possessiveness, just enjoying for oneself is common, is in us. But the speciality, the compassion in the Ishvara Kotis or in the great people, incarnations like Ramakrishna, we can see here. So much of infinite compassion, the joy or the experience of Parabrahman or the Atman or God, Bhagavan in your heart, that joy is so much, they cannot share ordinary sweets or mangoes. They want to be selfish. Then what will they do when they get the highest? Again, you have to get the example of from Ramakrishna himself. What will be the amount of joy when you realize God, or even when you are in the presence of God, let alone realizing God and going too forward in spiritual life, and realizing God is a very high thing. It is much, much more higher joy. But the ordinary joy of being in the presence of God or near Avatar Purusha itself was so high. So Ramakrishna used to explain with the analogy, when the gopis or the Vrindavan Vrajavasis, the cowherds, the Rakhalas, the cowherd friends of Krishna's, were with Krishna, when they used to see Krishna, when the Radha and the gopis and other cowherd boys, the friends, Sudhama and other people, they used to come near Krishna, even see Krishna, the incarnation. What would be the joy felt in their heart? What would be the exuberance of joy? So Ramakrishna compares it with the ordinary joy of this world. What can you imagine a joy, the highest joy you can imagine on this earth? Yeah, it's the bodily, physical joy, joy of copulation. So you can think that the sexual joy may be the highest on this earth. You may imagine it. So if that is taken as one unit of time, sorry, one unit of joy, let us take this joy which you're getting in this physical body by sparsha as one unit of joy. So when you see the Lord, when you have the vision of the Lord, when you experience God, even just you go to the nearness of Lord, realizing within the heart and becoming one with the Lord, or realizing Him, becoming a gnani, is very, very much still higher. But even if you to come to the company of the Lord, if you see the Lord, when the gopis and the Rakhalas or those cowherd boys, friends of Krishna, would see Krishna, what would be the joy they used to get? Because this is one unit of joy, the sexual joy, what you find, you think it is the highest on this earthly plane. If it is compared as the highest, then that one unit multiplied by the number of hair follicles on your body. I don't have hair on my head, so don't think of that. But suppose there is hair on the head, and also not here, Ramakrishna is telling not hairs, but hair follicle, or the what do you call the strand will come out of one. There will be so many other things, skin pores on our body and skin. If you take a microscope, or even if you take a lens and see, there are so many skin pores from which these hair strands will come, or the sweat glands will be there. During the winter, all that sweat glands will cover up, and the oil gland, the sweat gland, everything will be there in that skin pore. So during the summer, or when there is heat, when you do exercise, when there is humidity, the sweat and oil, other things will come out and keep the skin moist. But in winter, that will be closed because of the cold temperature, and that's why you see you have to apply so many creams, or skin moisturizer, because everything is close. So here, Ramakrishna uses the term that skin pores of the hair or sweat gland, or those millions and millions and billions of them. If you take one surface, small surface of the skin, there will be so many. Then what about on the whole body? So that may be billions or trillions. So this one unit of joy multiplied by the number of skin pores on your body is the amount of joy the people would get when they used to see the incarnation. Just be in his presence, that would be the joy, amount of joy. Then think of the joy when you realize God within your own heart, when you yourself merge in God, or experience God within by sadhana, which is maybe million more than that. So ordinary people, when they do a lot of sadhana and realize God and go to his nearness, they cannot withstand it. We ordinary people cannot withstand in our day-to-day life from the temptation of ordinary coffee, ordinary tea. Very ordinary 2 grams of tobacco, alcohol, or drugs. They get so much of addiction. You can see the drug addicts and the other people. They're so much addicted to that minute joy. They cannot withstand. They will do so many crimes. They will do anything to get that joy. So that is the amount of pull to get that joy. Then just compare to the joy multiplied by trillions and billions of times. So can you withstand that joy? You will just rush and fall into it, and you want to merge and get the joy. But now imagine the avatar Purushas, the Ishvara Kotis to some extent, and some people, gurus, they withstand that joy, temptation. They will stop that. They will not have it for themselves. They will come back. They want to share. See the pain they are undergoing because they can't merge in God. They want to come back and help others. So they will undergo pain. They cannot see when you don't get that joy. What would be the pain they have to undergo? They're ready to undergo that. Why? Because to help others. So now you can understand what is compassion. I just explained, took so much of time to explain this because to understand what compassion is. Otherwise, we may think that ordinary act of just throwing some 1 cent or 2 cent to a beggar who is sitting there with disdain and with arrogance, giving some alms to a beggar, we think that is compassion. But you should know what real compassion is. So that's why I gave so much of explanation here. So by telling this story, Ramakrishna is himself telling what are incarnations, what is their compassion. Shardanandaji, taking that example of that story, is explaining the difference between ordinary jivas. We are all ordinary jivas. And the gurus and the Ishvara Kotis and the Avatar Purushas to go higher and higher and higher in the hierarchy. The highest is the Avatar Purusha, the Ishvara. Compassion, unselfishness, personified. So they will melt out of compassion. They cannot withstand the difficulties of the people, of the ordinary people, of the living beings. So let us see what Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling. Thinking so, he turned back and came down to the field. Then he began to proclaim to one and all, to whomsoever he happened to see, listen, listen, there is a mart of bliss here. Come, let us enjoy it together. He thus took all the people with him to join the mart of bliss. You see now, just as we cannot find out the cause of the third friend's inclination to share the enjoyment with the many, so also we cannot point out why the desire to do good to humanity is present in the incarnation from their very childhood. I'll just give you another wonderful example. You know, the disciple of Ramakrishna, he was called the spiritual son of Ramakrishna. His name was Swami Brahmananda. His earlier name, his pre-monastic name was Rakhal Chandra Ghosh. And Ramakrishna himself was surprised. Rakhala means the cowherd boy, the shepherd or cowherd boy, not shepherd, cowherd boy. That is the meaning of Rakhala. So what is the speciality of this word Rakhala? Because Krishna was also a cowherd, and all the friends of Krishna, the close friends of Krishna who used to go to graze the cows with Krishna, they were named as Rakhalas. Rakhala means here cowherd friends of Krishna, Lord Krishna. So that's how the name Rakhal comes. So here, in his last life, Rakhal Chandra Ghosh, who had got the name Rakhala, in his earlier life, he was the closest friend of Krishna in Vrindavan. And his name is also Rakhal Chandra Ghosh. Ramakrishna could see, and Divine Mother had told him that now a boy will come to you, you have to guide him in spiritual life, who was in his earlier life the closest friend of Lord Krishna. You can just imagine you will be having the chums, close friends, best friends. So like that, just imagine if you are the best friend of Lord Krishna, if you are the best friend of Ramachandra, if you are the best friend of Ramakrishna, you can also term the bosom friend. So just imagine. So this Rakal Chandra Ghosh, this particular boy, whom mother gave to Ramakrishna and told he will be your spiritual son, Manasaputra. So mother had shown him that he was in his last life the close friend, bosom friend of Lord Krishna. So now, when this Swami became elderly and he was now the president of the order, Ramakrishna Sangha, even before that, he was very hesitant to give Mantra Diksha. Very choosy. He would never give because he knew what will happen behind the scene. We all do not know what is happening. We just go and take Mantra Diksha and we just enjoy the fruits. But what is happening behind? The Guru who gives you the spiritual initiation, Mantra Diksha, has to take away the very big chunk of our karma. That is the reason. 2 or 3 reasons are there, or maybe many reasons. What I know is, important thing is, the first thing, by giving the name of the Lord, through that he will transfer his spiritual energy into us. Secondly, we can see that we can also take up some mantras and other things, some name of God from the scriptures and go on doing it. Then why can't we take spiritual initiation from ourselves, from the books? That cannot happen because we don't have this thing called faith. You will not have faith. Today you will like this mantra, then tomorrow you read something else, you will like something else, then you will throw away this older mantra, you will go to some other mantra, you will try there. Then like that it will go on changing and changing and changing and you will never reach the goal. So you will never have faith until unless you take it from Guru. That's why the scriptures insist you have to get the mantra diksha, you have to be initiated by the Guru. It's compulsory. Only people like Avatar Purusha, like Ramakrishna and some other great people, they can go without the help of the Guru. But even they took the help of Guru because to show to the people that the words of the scripture that you have to take the help of the Guru is true. So that you will also follow it. Otherwise, you will start thinking, oh, Ramakrishna has not done that, so we shall also not do it and give up and be in trouble. That's why to help us again out of compassion, the Lord took the help of the Guru, otherwise it was not necessary. You can see that Ramakrishna, even in his childhood, as a small young child of 5 years, 6 years, he was having spiritual experiences, he was having samadhis, he was seeing other different gods and goddesses, he used to be having the visions. Everything was there already within him. He did not need the help of a Guru. But why did he take the Guru and took the Mantra Diksha and other things? Just to show to the people the veracity of the scriptures and should not be made wrong. People will follow. Yad yadacharati shreshtaha tat tat devetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurte lokastada anuvartate. These are the words of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. What the elderly people do, the younger ones will simply follow them. Sayat pramanam kurte lokastada anuvartate. They will follow them. Yad yad acharati shreshtaha. Whatever the elderly people will follow, will do. Tat tat eva itara janaha. The other people, the ignorant people will just follow them. That's why the elderly people should be very careful what they do. Otherwise, they will set a wrong example. And it will, the generation, whole generation will be spoiled seeing them when they are setting a wrong example. So we should be very, very careful what we are doing in the public because we are setting an example to others. So here we should be very, very careful. And Ramakrishna, that's why he took the help of the Guru so that other people will not get a wrong lesson from him. So now you can see here what the great thing is happening behind the scene when they are giving the initiation. So I told 2 or 3 points that they're giving that power to us, the name and the faith to us. Because of that, we get the faith and we will go forward and they will guide us in this unknown terrain of spiritual path where there may be so many pitfalls, there may be so many dangers. So he will take the light and guide us through. That is the help of the Guru. Very, very, there may be so many other important things. I'm just concentrating on some few important, which I know. Then very important thing is he will take away big chunk of our karma, of our bad papas, the sins, and he himself will suffer it. He will take it and suffer it. Not only he will give us so many good things, he will take the sins of ours, and instead of us suffering it, he will suffer major portion of our sins. That's why After Mantra Diksha, you can see how we can go fast, very fast progress in spiritual life. Until then, there will be some force pulling us back. The sin, like the boja, it is called, like a sack of heavy thing, mud or something behind my back. I'm trying to climb the mountain. What will be? It will pulling me down. One step up and 10 step down. 100 step down, I'll be pulled down by that weight. Like that, our sin will be pulling back. We can't succeed. We can't do any business. We can't do any progress in spiritual life. Why? That sin is fully pulling us down. The Guru will take away that major chunk of the sin and he suffers it. So you can see the infinite compassion of the Guru. If the ordinary Guru can do this, what about Avatara Purushas? So after telling that story, I just wanted to give you one example. So here, Brahmanandaji Maharaj knew what he has to do while he is giving spiritual initiation. So when he took that sins from others while he gave initiation, he was very, very choosy to give only to few. He would not give in the beginning, he would not give Mantra Diksha at all because he knew he has to take the sins and he has to suffer. So that suffering, just like the joy you get out of spiritual experience, seeing God, here it is a negative thing. The pain, intense pain you experience while you take the sins of others, you will be the excruciating pain you get even when people of sinful tendencies touch the feet of Holy Mother, touch the feet of Ramakrishna. They used to feel like poisonous sting of the poisonous scorpion. They used to writhe in pain just by the touch. Then if you take the major chunk of their sins and suffer, what would be the effect? So Brahmanandaji knew, so he used to get fever. Phobia will be there, water phobia, fire phobia, like that, taking sin phobia. So he knew that he has to take that sin. So he used to shiver, used to run away. Then Holy Mother also told, we people have come here to take the sins and help the people. So do not stop. Take their sins, give Mantra Diksha, make disciples, so they help them go forward in spiritual life. Holy Mother should insist. But he would not even obey Mother's words. Very rarely he used to give initiation. It so happened once he saw the drama of Ramanujacharya, one of the greatest Acharyas. So we hear the name, the first in the calendar is, first came Shankaracharya, after that Ramanujacharya, then came Madhvacharya, and so many Vallabhacharya, so many Acharyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so many other Acharyas came. So now, Ramanujacharya, many of us here, South Africa, will not be knowing. He started this special people or that sect called Vishishta Advaita. The school of thought which Ramanujacharya was giving was Vishishta Advaita. Yeah, we are Advaitins. We believe that God is one, God is Narayana, and there are many parts. We are all the jivas, the millions and billions and trillions of jivas, living beings, are a part of that Narayana or that supreme being. Prakriti is also part, and everything is a part of that. So ours is Advaita. There is only one God, that is Narayana or Vishnu. In him, all these different parts are there. But the Dvaitins, Dvaita, the followers of Madhvacharya, Madhvas, they tell no, God is separate, the living beings are separate, and the Prakriti is separate. So Vishisht Advaitins tell no, there is no Jivas, there is no Prakriti, there is only one God, that's all. These are all apparent. They look like existing, they don't have existence, it's only the God exists. That is Advaita, no two. But Ramanujacharya followers, Vishishtadvaitins, they tell, yes, we also believe, we are also Advaitins, only one, God only is there. But we are special Advaitins, Vishishta Advaita. What is that? How are we special? Yes, God is only one, Advaita, but in him, the living beings, the jivas are there, they are the part of the Lord, and the Prakriti, everything is a part. He is much, much more bigger than that. So that is their idea. So those people who follow this Tattva, Vishishtadvaita, they are called Sri Vaishnavas. They are also called by another name, Iyengars. Ayya, that word in South India comes from the Sanskrit word Arya. Even in South Africa, people tell Aja. That Aja also has come from this word, Sanskrit word Arya, Aji, Aja. It also has come from Arya, the Sanskrit word Arya, respectful person. That is the meaning of Arya. elderly person, respectful person. So here, Ayyangaru. Garu means respectful word in Telugu. In Andhra Pradesh, Garu means respectful. The same thing becomes Ayyar in Tamil. The same thing becomes Ayyanavaru in Kannada. Like that, Ayya comes from Arya. So Ayyangars, they are also called. So Ramanujacharya is one of the main, is not the founder I'm telling, main propounder or who developed this. Earlier to him also, this is Vishishtadvaita was there, his guru were also following that path. Ramanujacharya is the main person, propounder, or he might be the highest person in that lineage. Okay, let us not go to those things. So Girish Chandra Ghosh had taken one part of the life of Ramanujacharya and he had made it into a drama, and it was being displayed everywhere, and it was very popular of Ramanujacharya's life. And once Swami Brahmananda had gone to weave that. You should know the background now. He's refusing to give Mantra Diksha because he's afraid of the sins to take from his disciples. So Holy Mother is asking him, persisting with the attempt to make Brahmananda to give Mantra Diksha, and he is not willing. And once he has come to this drama. And what is this drama of Ramanujacharya, life of Ramanujacharya? In that, what is the scene which inspired Swami Brahmananda? Ramanujacharya, the great Acharya, one of the greatest Acharya. Swami Vivekananda praises him. One of the Acharyas who had large-heartedness. No other Acharya had that large-heartedness, that kindness, that compassion. Others had a lot of intellect and so many other maybe spiritual acumen. But Ramanujacharya had this heart, large-heartedness, very feeling for the downtrodden, to help the downtrodden, the people. So it was there in lot in this great Acharya, Ramanujacharya. So you know what is the meaning of the name Rama Anuja? Anuja means brother. Anuja means younger brother, not just brother. Anu means the next. Ja means born, younger brother. Of whom? Rama, Lord Ramachandra's younger brother. Who was he? Lakshmana. There were so many others, Bharata and other things, they were also Ramanujas. But here it is told about Lakshmana. So Ramanujacharya was the avatara of Lakshmana. And who was the Lakshmana, the avatar of Adishesha, Vishnu's that Shayana, the snake on which he's sleeping. So in Krishna's avatara, he became Balarama. And in Rama's avatara, he became Lakshmana. So here Ramanujacharya is the avatar of that Adishesha and this Lakshmana. And he has come and see the coincidence. His name is also Ramanuja. Rama Anuja, younger brother of Rama. So this Ramanujacharya got a very famous and very powerful Narayana mantra from his guru. So that guru initiated him with this Narayana mantra and instructed him, if you do, now you have got it from me, if you do this mantra with Shraddha, then you will get Vaikunta. You can go to Vaikunta. You can enjoy the bliss of Vaikunta. You can see Narayana always. You will be always having the Sayujya or Samipya, Sarupya, whatever, Mukti with Narayana if you do this mantra, Narayana mantra. So he told you should be very careful. One thing, because you have done it, if you do it, if you keep it secret and do yourself, then you will get Vaikunta. But if you give it to others, then you will get hell. If you give it this mantra to others, you will go to hell. And those person who has got that mantra will go to Vaikunta. So be careful, keep it a secret, don't give it to others. Yes, Gurudev, Ramanuja told that and then went out. He called all people from the village and everywhere surroundings, he made them together. I am going to give you the path to go to Vaikunta, to Narayana's place, to the residence of Narayana. Come, come, all of you come, get the joy. I'm going to give the greatest of the path or mantra by which you can go to Vaikunta, experience infinite bliss. So thousands of people gathered there, and he went to the top of that place somewhere where at a great height, so that all people can see him and hear him. Then in a loud voice, he proclaimed that mantra that all of you can go to Narayana in Vaikunta. Thousands and thousands of people have gathered there. People of all caste, the topmost caste, the poor people, the rich people, the educated, uneducated, the top caste, the low caste, everybody have gathered. He simply, irrespective of any discrimination, he gave it to everybody. He was full of joy. Then he came back to the Guru. Guru was surprised and he was a little angry. I told you, Ramanuja, that if you give it to anybody, they will go to heaven, that is Vaikuntha, and you will go to hell. You're going to a very bad hell and you have to remain there for many, many years. What will happen? Then do you know what was the reply of Ramanujacharya? Oh Gurudeva, oh Gurudeva, my Gurudeva, if I, one person, can go to hell, and if all the thousands and thousands, millions of people, they can go to heaven, I am ready to go to hell. For the sake of all the 1,000 people, if they can go to Vaikuntha, to the heaven, and enjoy the bliss, I am ready to sacrifice my life and I am ready to go to hell. I will enjoy hell. I will suffer hell. I'm not bothered about hell. I will suffer hell. If by suffering hell, by suffering the pain, I can make all those 1,000 people go to heaven, why not, Gurudev, I will go to. And the Gurudev was surprised at the compassion, the large heartedness of Ramanujacharya. He blessed him, no, you will not go to hell. You will go to hell, heaven, because of your unselfishness. Whatever, that might be the second portion. But the first portion, see the infinite compassion of Ramanujacharya, the greatest Acharya. Swami Vivekananda praises him to the skies. What a feeling for the downtrodden, for the poor people, for the suffering mass. He was ready to go to hell as many times by giving the opportunity for all the people to go to heaven. Vaikuntha. After seeing this drama, this incident of Ramanujacharya, Brahmanandaji Maharaj was so much inspired. Then after that he started giving mantra diksha. Even then he was very choosy, but even then he started giving them mantra diksha after these incidents. So just I wanted to tell you what is the heart, what is the greatness of these acharyas and avatars, what is the compassion. You cannot imagine. You may think, oh, I have compassion. I'm very compassionate, I'm very kind. No, it's a minuscule. It's coming out of my arrogance and ego. But this is, they're oozing compassion, something special. That's what here Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling. They are the gurus, they are the Ishvara Kotis, they are the Avatar Purushas, the highest is the Avatar Purusha. So just imagine his compassion. He could have stayed there in his loka, happily in his samadhi and in that joy. Why did he give up that joy? Come here to suffer. Stay with us. Take all the imperfections. Help all the other people. Pure compassion, compassion, compassion. So you can also become Ishvara Koti. How? By large-heartedness, by compassion. Don't tell that I'm compassionate and it's not by worth. It is not sympathy, it is empathy. You should show it by action. Helping others people, sacrificing your own happiness, taking all the unhappiness of others on yourself and helping others. Now people are going out and giving the food materials, our volunteers, our ashrama volunteers, the group, just like so great, some of the group leaders are there, Niresh, Naresh, and so many people, Pranil, they're all going to Lenasia, poor people's area. They can contact coronavirus. They're not caring. So many other volunteers. I just told few names, that's all. They're going door to door, giving the food to them. Anytime they can contact coronavirus and they may be going to the hospital. They're not caring for their own safety. They're packing things, taking food, they're collecting money. Now to get money is very, very difficult now. They're collecting money and going to the poor people, going to their houses, giving their food packets with the mask and with sanitization and all the social distancing. Can't you see the kindness here? Sacrificing. So you may not do all those things, at least to some extent, to your neighbors, to your own children, to your own father and mother. Why can't we show this? Start even at the level of the thought. That's very great thing. So that is what you call and also become Ishvara Kotis. And there are people I am seeing with my own eyes, how much of sacrifice they're going door to door, serving people without caring for their own health. Is that not sacrifice? Is that not compassion? Yeah, it is not sympathy, it is empathy. To be converted into action, ready to sacrifice. That is very, very important. So the incarnations, why they desire to do good to humanity, you cannot understand. Even from the childhood, it's very, very too difficult to point out. So I told you the great story of Ramanujacharya, the greatest of Acharya, was so compassionate. So from what has been said, some perhaps may come to the conclusion that the incarnation of God have never to fight like ourselves with the unruly unruly senses. They may conclude that the senses are naturally submissive like children to these divine personages all through their lives, and that it is therefore very easy for them to direct their minds from sense objects to spiritual varieties. But we have to say that it is not so. Having assumed the human role, they too are like other men and having to come out victorious in a struggle with their lower nature before they could proceed to the spiritual goal. So now, from the introduction, we will go to the proper life and we will see what Ramakrishna is practicing, the disciplines, the spiritual discipline, and what are real spiritual practices and how he's going forward. Let us take that cue from the life of Ramakrishna. Let us now jump into the life of Sri Ramakrishna. What is happening as a sadhaka? The master, Sri Ramakrishna, used to say that when the powerful flood of divine moods come into human life unexpectedly, it cannot be suppressed or concealed to any effort. That is not all. The gross material body fails to contain the spirit that is stirred by the powerful onrush of divine emotions and very often get completely shattered. I've seen so many people. They will jump into the spiritual life unprepared. You have to prepare your mind, you have to prepare your body, make it strong by yoga, pranayama. And then you have to do the sadhana regularly, make your mind pure. And then if you get spiritual life, yes, you'll be having the strength to withstand that. Without preparation, we go suddenly pray to God, fight with God to get those. And when the God, Lord gives us some experience, then your body, mind, everything will be shattered. They'll be in trouble then. So they'll be suffering a lot at that time. So that is true. The master used to say that when the powerful flood of divine mood, bhava, comes into human life unexpectedly, you cannot understand those people are suffering. Only people of the spiritual nature can understand it because they have read the life of Ramakrishna. Other ordinary people, they can't understand what is their problem at all. It cannot be suppressed or concealed by any effort. That is not all. The gross material body fails to contain the spirit that is stirred by the powerful onrush of divine emotions and very often get completely shattered. Many sadhakas meet with death that way. A fit body is necessary to contain the exuberant surge of emotions born of perfect knowledge or perfect devotion. It is only the bodies of great souls known as incarnation of God that have up till now been seen to bear its full force and continue to live in the world. This is why the devotional scriptures describe them again and again as possessed of bodies consisting of pure sattva. The incarnations, they say, can bear the full impulse of spiritual emotions only because they come down to the world with bodies made of the elements of pure sattva, devoid of all contacts with rajas and tamas. Even in spite of their having such bodies, they particularly, the incarnations treading the path of devotion are seen on many occasions to be afflicted and overwhelmed with the powerful stress of divine moods. It is indubitable from the accounts we have received that the joints in the bodies of Lord Jesus Christ and Sri Chaitanya relaxed and drops of blood oozed out like perspiration, just like sweating. Drops of blood would come out like sweating from the bodies of Jesus Christ and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like perspiration through the every pore in their bodies owing to the powerful surge of spiritual emotions. No doubt these physical changes were felt to be extremely painful, yet it was only through them that their bodies got adapted to contain those extraordinary upsurge of divine emotions. But in course of time, they became naturalized to these impulses, which therefore ceased to manifest in ways distressing to their bodies. After that, it comes down. It becomes natural to them. So then they will not feel that pain. From now on, a series of extraordinary changes came over the master's body. So, as we told in the earlier introduction, don't think that everything will be child's play for incarnation. They have to undergo a lot of pain. They will be having all the imperfections, and they have to overcome. The lower nature will trouble them, and they have to fight with them and then come up. So, all the troubles, just like us, will be there. But their effort will be so great that they can overcome it. That's all. Why are we not overcoming it? Because our efforts are less. We will be always telling in words, I'll put the best of my efforts, but I will not have put my best effort. It would be the least of my effort. So that's why we will not, it will take for us to overcome all those things. So now you can see how the incarnations used to suffer because of the onrush or exuberance or the surge of divine emotions. So what would happen? So we have received that the joints in the, come to know that in the joints in the bodies of Lord Jesus Christ and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relaxed and drops of blood oozed out like perspiration through every pore in their bodies owing to the powerful surge of spiritual emotions. No doubt these physical changes were felt to be extremely painful, yet it was only through them that their bodies got adapted to contain those extraordinary upsurge of divine emotions. Just imagine their compassion. They could have been there in their loka, enjoying in the bliss of the Parabrahman, infinite bliss, giving up all those things. They come down, take all human imperfections, see so much of pain, blood oozing out in the form of perspiration, like that of perspiration, because of that surge of divine emotions. So why are they to undergo all these things? What was the necessity? It's because of us, to help us, because of the compassion. Now you can understand what is compassion. They're ready to sacrifice their enjoyment and everything and accept pain for our sake. There was no need for them to do sadhana. Only to set an example, they have taken this body and suffering, all these things, suffering. So now you can see why we have to worship the incarnation. So much of pain they have taken. Why do we worship Mother? How much of pain she has taken for us to give birth to us. So we do worship her. Now we can see how much of the incarnations are to bear the pain for the sake of others, for all of us. So can we keep quiet other than worshipping them for their greatness? So all these things happened to Sri Ramakrishna in the divine incarnation. All this pain he had to undergo, all these sufferings in the beginning, not only in the end, taking the sins and suffering with different diseases like cancer, but he suffered even in the beginning, in the time of sadhana. Why? Because of that onrush of spiritual emotions, he had to bear the pain. It was not necessary for him. Why is he doing that? To set an example. So he is taking all the pain. He has done everything so that we need not suffer for. We need not be in pain. So now we are all lucky. The scientists and the other great people, they have taken so much of pain, found out so many new things. They have found out so many special researches and other things, so many patents. More than 2,000 patents were given by Thomas Alva Edison. He used to be sitting in the laboratory hours together. And what did he get? Very little thing. And what did we get? So much of enjoyment. We are having all those technologies and other modern amenities, and we are enjoying it. So why did all scientists do that? Just for us. You can see their sacrifice. After finding out, getting the tungsten, the metal from which he made the bulb, converted the electrical energy into the light energy. The tungsten, when he found, he was seeing 2 or 3 hours together, he was watching that light, just enjoying it, that's all. In the laboratory. He couldn't set his eyes otherwise. So the scientists like that here, you can see the incarnation. They are now doing all this experimentation in sadhanas so that they will suffer all those things and we will sit and enjoy in our the cozy atmosphere in the house. We enjoy the fan, we enjoy the bulb, we enjoy the light. We only come to know the pain when there is no water supply, when there is no power supply, load shedding. Then only we cannot use the heater. We cannot use the what do you call microwave oven. We cannot use the aircon, air conditioner. We cannot use any other amenities. And how much we suffer. And now we can understand how the old people, without all these things, they used to live, and how scientists, the great scientists, have sacrificed their life and given all these things, researches and technology, science and technology for us to enjoy. So likewise here, the great incarnations, they are doing all these things, taking up the pain so that we may not suffer those things. We can smoothly go forward without all this suffering. So from now on, a series of extraordinary changes came over the master's body because of the surge of this devotional love. And he has to undergo a lot of pain, the burning sensation, and so many other things which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jesus Christ had undergone. He undergone even more, 10 times or 100 times, 1,000 times more pain he had to undergo. And we will see what are all those things. And why did he undergo all those things, pain? So that we may not undergo all the pain. We will smoothly go forward in spiritual life. So we have already made mention of the burning sensation in his body from the beginning of his sadhana. The body, that burning sensation in his body, he had to suffer on many occasions from its excesses. The master himself pointed out it caused to us on various occasions. At the time of performing sandhya and worship, sandhya means, the morning and the evening, when the day or night join together, that is the sandhya. When the day and the noon join together, the evening join together, the noon time, that is the one of the sandhyas, madhyandina sandhya, pratah sandhya in the morning. Then when the evening and the night join together, the timings of the this thing, that timing, particular timing, joining time is called sandhya. That is called sayam sandhya. So at that time, mind will all by its own natural tendency become very calm and quiet. So at that time, the whole nature will be very quiet. Then you can easily meditate and you can concentrate your mind. That's why our Rishi Munis have done the arrangement of doing Trikala Sandhya. So Sandhya means the joining period. Early morning, Brahmi Muhurta, then noon time, the 12 o'clock in that range from 11 to 1 or something. And in the evening, that when we do Arati, that is from 5:30, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. That is the evening Sayam Sandhya. We do our Arati, we do our Japa meditation during. So at that time, it's called Sandhya. Sandhya means the morning, noon or evening spiritual practices. That is called Sandhya in short. So that's why here they're telling at the time of performing Sandhya, Sandhya Vandanam and worship, said the master, I used to think according to the scriptural prescriptions that the Papa Purusha within, had been burnt up. So in all of us, all the sum total of Papa which we have done will be there, will take the form of a human being. That is called Papa Purusha. Purusha means a being. Papa means sin. If all of your sin will take the form of a human being and stay within you, that is called Papa Purusha. Because we have so much of sin in us. So that has taken the shape of a human being or one being. That is called Papa Purusha. Papa means sinful tendencies. Purusha means has taken, personified itself to take a form, living form. So now, I used to think according to the scriptural injunctions, especially in the worship, it is there in the Bhuta Shuddhi. Now in the science of worship today, that is Monday in the evening at 6 o'clock, I do this discussion on puja, worship, or science of worship, or the significance of worship, telling about all these different rituals. So in that now present, I am going from pranayama to the Bhuta Shuddhi. In that Bhuta Shuddhi, we get all this burning of the Papa Purusha, all those things, the scriptural injunctions are there. I'm going to explain about that in detail, maybe in another 2-3 classes. So now, according to that injunction, scriptural injunctions, Ramakrishna, when he used to do the worship and come to this portion of burning the Papa Purusha, at the time of performing Sandhya and worship, said the master, I used to think, according to the scriptural prescriptions, he doesn't have any Papa in him. But when he used to do this process, Papa Purusha, so he used to assume and do that the burning of the Papa Purusha or Bhuta Shuddhi, scriptural prescription, that the Papa Purusha within had been burnt up. We have to do that every day in the puja process, to think that we have to make him, give him a live form, and through different rituals, we have to burn it. So then you will feel that you become so pure. Every day when you are thinking your Papa Purusha is burnt, then your mind will become so strong in faith that you will always start feeling that you are very pure, you are pure, all your papas have gone. So that's why our rishis and munis have done these wonderful positive suggestions to make us strong spiritually. So every day you have to do this burning of the Papa Purusha, and you have to feel that you are pure, you are bereft of Papa. So every day in puja you have to do that in Bhuta Shuddhi. So today I'm going to, maybe I'll come to that explanation, and another next month, the other 2-3 classes I have to take up only these things, because I have to go in details. So who knew then that there was actually a Papa Purusha within the body, and that it could be actually burnt and destroyed? Ramakrishna is telling, a burning sensation came on the body from the beginning of the sadhana. I thought, what is this disease? It increased by degrees and became unbearable. Various kinds of oil prescribed by physicians were used, but it could by no means be alleviated. One day, while I was sitting under the Panchavati, I saw that a jet black person with red eyes and a hideous appearance came reeling as if drunk out of this, showing his own body. There is a mantra also. There is one stotra, just like we do stotra of different deities, gods and goddesses. Like that, there is one full stotra on Papa Purusha himself. So I can read that to you, the Papa Purusha stotra, but if I go to the meanings and details, I'll be losing time, we'll be digressing. That's why in the next class, in the beginning, I will try to explain about that, and even I will try to do the Bhuta Shuddhi, that part also. I will in detail explain it to you, so that you may get interest in puja too. Then you may also start doing puja, in which you'll be doing this every day, Bhuta Shuddhi. But now today I'm just mentioning that the burning of the Papa Purusha, there is a stotra, Kajjala Purusham, and all those things you have to imagine on the left side of your body. And what is the description there? The stotra, just like on gods and goddesses, there is one stotra, 3 paragraphs, I think. So describing about the Papa Purusha, you have to imagine according to that. Sitting on the left side, then with various different accessories, you'll be burning with Agni Bija Mantra, then you'll be drying with the Vayu Bija Mantra, that is the Rang is the Agni Bija Mantra, then the Vam of the Vayu Bija Mantra, you'll be drying it up. Then again, you are creating a new body. Then again, you are invoking that Atma into that and bringing back all the Kundalini back to its original position. All those things are there in the Bhuta Shuddhi. I'll go into the detail about that Bhuta Shuddhi and this Papa Purusha Stotra and other things in the next class. That is Thursday. I will take up that. So now we shall not go to it, because we have very little time. So we'll not digress from the life of Sri Ramakrishna. We will see that. So various kinds of oil prescribed by physicians were used, but it could not by no means be alleviated the burning sensation in the body. One day, while I was sitting under the Panchavati, I saw that a jet black person with red eyes and a hideous appearance came reeling as if drunk out of this, showing his own body, and walked before me. I saw again another person of placid mien, in ochre-colored dress, with a trident in his hand, similarly coming out of my body. He vehemently attacked the other and killed him. After this incident, after this vision, sitting in the Panchavati, I saw this Papa Purusha also coming. The explanation is given out of this body. Then another Punya Purusha, or a sannyasin with ochre cloth and a trident coming out of this body. He vehemently attacked the other, that is a Papa Purusha, and killed him. The burning sensation in the body deceased. After that, for a short time, after I had that vision, I suffered from the burning sensation continuously for 6 months before the Papa Purusha was burnt up. We were told by the master that a similar sensation came on him again, a short time after the burning up of the Papa Purusha. So when you see that the Ramakrishna's body having the burning sensation and other things, don't get afraid that because of your sadhana you will get it. No, you're not going to get it if you're going to do the sadhana by taking the mantra diksha. So now Ramakrishna has done all those things and undergone all those pains so that we need not undergo it. So he has already undergone all the pain and other things for us. He has made it very easy. It is just like instant food. He has made all the food and he has made it so easy for digestion and he has given us. We have to just eat it. That's all. So all the pain things and burning of sensation he has undergone. You need not undergo that. So that we need not undergo, he has finished off all those things. So don't worry, when I am going to do sadhana, I may get all these things. Nothing to worry. Be completely bereft of that fear. The Lord has already taken on himself and he has made the road clear. So you can just simply go follow that, do the japa meditation and go forward. There will be no such burning. I can 100% assure that to you. Nothing of such will happen if you are under the care of the Guru. That's why again and again telling, if you're doing the sadhana, after the spiritual initiation, then no fear. But if you yourself taking some mantra and not without proper initiation, you do some spiritual practices and get into trouble, don't blame me. I'm again and again insisting you have to do the spiritual practices only under the guidance of the Guru. You have to take the mantra diksha from the Guru, then go forward. Then there'll be no danger. We were told by the master that a similar sensation came on him again a short time after the burning up of the Papa Purusha. The master had then gone beyond the limit of Vaidhi Bhakti. I told what is Vaidhi Bhakti. In the beginning of our spiritual life, our devotion will be very less. At that time, we have to follow Vidhi Vidhana, rules and regulations, niyamas. They will prescribe so many rules and regulations. You have to do like this, you have to do. That is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means with the devotion according to Vidhi-Vidhana, the scriptural injunctions, do's and don'ts, following all the do's and don'ts. You have to strictly adhere to that with faith. That is called Vaidhi Bhakti. So now in the beginning, Ramakrishna started with that. We have to do most of our life that Vaidhi Bhakti only until we get that Ragatmika Bhakti, that pure devotion, the devotion out of exuberance of love, intense love. That is Ragatmika Bhakti. So until then, we have to do in the beginning all this Vaidhi Bhakti, Vidhi Vidhana, do's and don'ts, rules and regulations you have to follow strictly. Whatever scriptures tell us, you have to take bath, you have to be clean, you have to wash your hands, you have to clean the temple, you have to first go and do this mantra. The next step is this. Then first it will be Padya, then it will be Achamana, then it will be Arkhya, then there will be Snana, then there will be Dupa, Deepa, Naivedya, then Punarachmaniyam, all these steps, rules and regulations. You should not breathe or you should not talk in front of the Naivedya so that your spit and other things may fall on the Naivedya. Be very careful. These are all Vaidhi Bhakti. With all the rules and regulations, treating the Lord as something supreme and treating him. So Ramakrishna had gone beyond the limits of Vaidhi Bhakti, all these rules and regulations, do's and don'ts, because he has got this Ragatmika Bhakti, intense love to God, or practice of devotional disciplines according to scriptural injunctions. That is Vaidhi Bhakti, and became engaged in the service of Divine Mother with Ragatmika Bhakti. Raga means attachment. Ragatmika means intense attachment to not human beings and the worldly things, to God. The same raga or attachment to this worldly things and worldly people, if you turn that to God, it becomes true love, unconditional, ahaituka bhakti. No, nothing in want. So when we have these wants, I want this, I want that, oh God, give me. When God is a means to an end, when you are having a lot of desires, you have to follow all this Vaidhi Bhakti, do's and don'ts, strictly, because you have so much of wants. When all your wants are gone, it is just pure love, unconditional love to God, then it becomes Ragatmika, intense attachment to God. Intense attachment to the world is Raga attachment and it will trouble you. Turn that attachment to God, it becomes divinized, deified, and it will propel you towards spiritual life. That is the difference. The same thing. If you turn the clock, the lock and key, you know the lock and key. You turn the key in the clockwise direction, it will bind you. The same key, the same energy, only the vectors is different, the direction is different. If you turn it anti-clockwise, it will release you. The same action, the same energy, the same key, turn it clockwise, it will bind you. The same key, the same energy, opposite direction, vector is different, anti-clockwise, it will liberate you. So the same attachment, ragatmika, turn towards the people, bind you. Turn towards the worldly things, bind you. For enjoyment, selfishness, bind you. The same love, the attachment, turn towards God, it will liberate you. Just like that. So the master had gone beyond the limits of this Vaidhi Bhakti or practice. So until unless you have desires to enjoy the ego, then you have to follow this Vaidhi Bhakti, do's and don'ts strictly. You go beyond all the desires, you don't have any desire to God, then automatically you will progress or you will be promoted to Vaidhi Bhakti. It will come naturally, don't force it. Vaidhi Bhakti or practice of devotional disciplines according to the scriptural injunctions and became engaged in the service of the Divine Mother with Ragatmika. Here is Ragatmika means intense love without any want, just to serve the God, just to please the Lord, nothing else. He doesn't want anything. For us now, God is only a means to an end for all the boons, for all the things we pray to God, not for God for God's sake, love for love's sake, work for work's sake. It is for something boon. You want some, so many desires are there. You will offer 2 cents of sugar or milk to God, and you will give hundreds of desires to be fulfilled to God. So that is not pure devotion. You'll have hundreds of desires. I want this, I want that, that daughter has to be married, this son has to be this, that, and that, this and this. All that is called desires. We want God, we have devotion to God only to fulfill all those desires. So God is a means to an end, is not the end. If it doesn't give boon, then we will not go to God. We'll go to another God who will give me boons and other things. So until then we have all those desires, we have to follow all this Vidhi Vidhana Bhakti, the devotion according to Vaidhi Bhakti, with all the strict regulations. Once you go beyond desires, you want only God, God for God's sake, love for love's sake, then automatically you'll be promoted to Ragatmika Bhakti, loving devotion, in the manner spoken of before. The burning sensation gradually increased so much that he could not find relief even though he placed a wet towel on his head and kept his body immersed in the water of Ganga. He used to go and immerse in Ganga so that he could not bear the burning sensation in his body. Even then, it would not reduce. He used to keep wet cloth on his head and then go immerse himself in Ganga. Only the nose is up on the water. So even then, the burning sensation would be there. The burning sensation gradually increased so much so that he could not find relief, even though he placed a wet towel on his head and kept his body immersed in the water of Ganga for 3 or 4 hours. We shall describe elsewhere the easy means by which the Brahmani, that is another guru who taught him the Vaishnava and the Tantric mode of practice spiritual life, Bhairavi Brahmani. So she gave a easy means because she was thorough, adept in scriptures, so she knew what are the remedies too. So she gave a remedy. Easy means by which Brahmani, when she came later, cured it and pointed out that this sensation owed its origin to his longing for the full vision of the Divine Lord and to his pang of separation from him. The master suffered again from the burning sensation in his body later at the time of practicing the Madhura Bhava, the sweet mood of the spouse of God. Hriday said the master then suffered from a pain and a burning sensation similar to what one feels when a pot full of live embers is placed on one's chest. He suffered long from that sensation which came on him from time to time. A few years after his sadhana came to an end and he became acquainted with Kanailal Ghoshal, a lawyer of Barasat, who was an advanced sadhaka of Shakti. He advised the master to put on his person an amulet encasing the mantra of his chosen ideal. That sensation came to an end when the amulet was put on. So we have to note here, again and again, I'm telling you, don't be afraid of all these things. It is only for the divine incarnation, such great people. For us ordinary people, the incarnation has already suffered all these things. And we are made free of all these things. So you just go forward, you will not have all these burning sensation and other things, suffering. We can just smoothly go forward. Our Guru has cleared the path. There'll be no, as I told you in the beginning, the scientists who are finding so many other mathematical postulation theorems, the scientists who are finding out all the new technologies, they have to suffer. Why? So that we may enjoy all the air conditioner, the light, the microwave oven, the bulb, they suffer in the laboratory. They have taken all the pain. So when we go to do that in the beginning, then we have to undergo the pain. But now because of our Guru, our Ishtadevata, the great scientists in spiritual life, the Gurus, the Ishvara Kotis, the saints, the seers, and the Avatar Purushas, they bear all this pain so that we smoothly, without any pitfall, can go forward. That's why it's only meant for, I'm just telling all these things, or Shardanandaji is explaining all this burning sensation and suffering to show the compassion of incarnations but undergo all these sufferings. Don't think that it is an easy cakewalk for them. They have to undergo so much of pain. Why did they do that? Out of compassion for the other living beings. So that is what we want to express and show you. And that's why we are taking through all these things. So you should not get afraid that, oh, I may also get that. No, nothing to worry. It's only for the incarnations of the great people like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa only. They are suffering only for us, and if they have made it clear, we will not be having all those things. So, and also you will come to know what is their compassion, how much they have to undergo the suffering. They are ready to do all those things. I gave the example of Ramanujacharya and other great saints. They are ready to sacrifice for the other people. They are ready to suffer for other people. And now see, Ramakrishna is suffering with that bhava so that we will be bereft of all these things. Mathur went back to Jan Bazar and told the Rani of the Master's extraordinary way of worship. The devout Rani was delighted to hear of it. She used to come to Dakshineshwar temple and listen to the song sung by Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya means the priest. Bhattaraka, Bhattacharya, Bhatta is one who does the Homa, Havana, Puja. They get the surname Bhatta or Bhattacharya in Bengal. It was called Bhatta Acharya. Acharya means teacher who teaches us some special skills is called Acharya. Bhatta is the priest, so that one is called Bhattacharya in Bengal. That's all. The same thing, but during the period of British, it got converted into Bhattacharya into Banerjee. Vandyopadhyaya then becomes Bandopadhyaya, then Banerjee. Then there's Chatterjee, Chattopadhyaya, then Vandyopadhyaya, then it is Mukhyopadhyaya. So they have become Mukherjee, Banerjee. So it is Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya in Bengal, it is called Bhattacharya. So the Sanskrit thing is Bhatta Acharya, Bhattacharya. So here Rani Rasmani and other people, they are calling Ramakrishna because he is doing the worship of the mother or the temple is called Bhattacharya because he is the priest. So Rani Rasmani, she would come and ask the Bhattacharya or Ramakrishna to sing songs of the Divine Mother, and she used to listen and had already grown affectionate towards him. He was just like a youth of 20, 21 or 22, and Rani Rasmani at that time was more than 50 or 60. So just like a childlike attitude she had towards him, she wanted to hear him again and again. The songs, the blissful songs on Divine Mother. On the occasion when the image of Govinda got broken, she was astonished to know of his intelligence, that is Master's Ramakrishna's intelligence inspired by devotion. So that intelligence has come from devotion, not the what you call brain intellect. It is from the heart, it is from devotion. It did not therefore take her long to understand that it was possible for one like the Master to have the grace of the Universal Mother. But an event occurred shortly afterwards which could have shaken the faith of the Rani and Mathur. One day the Rani went to the temple to worship the Divine Mother and pay her obeisance to the goddess. But while she was externally engaged in worship, she was eagerly thinking of the possible success or failure of a pending lawsuit instead of being absorbed in the divine service. The Master was then sitting there and singing songs for her. At her request, he was in the state of ecstasy. Divining the state of Rani's mind, he chastised and corrected her by striking her tender person and exclaiming, "Ah, that thought even here?" The Rani a spiritual aspirant fit to have the grace of the Universal Mother, realized the weakness of her mind and became repentant. Her devotion to Master increased a great deal on account of this event. We shall mention all these things in details elsewhere. So now, if it would have happened to us, our devotion would have decreased because we are not people of higher spiritual aspiration. Because Rani was a very high spiritual aspirant. She knows that she has done the mistake. And how could Bhattacharya or Ramakrishna know what is happening in her mind, thinking of the lawsuits and other things inside, sitting inside the temple instead of concentrating on Mother? So she knows that was her weakness. So I have to come up, and through the Master, the Mother has punished me. So she was very happy. Her devotion increased. But when we are egoistic, we are not interested in spiritual life, then such corrections or such things by the teachers, when the teachers used to punish us, we used to get angry because we are not interested in going forward. Our mind is not pure. So, but Rani Rasmani is a aspirant of high spiritual order. So she could understand why Ramakrishna did that, punished her. So her devotion increased. So it's a lesson to all of us. When the Lord gives us small punishments, it is because we will progress. It is just like Mother, while she is making you to walk, at the time she will be holding the hands, the child will be trying to walk on the two legs. Then sometimes he will let the child to walk without the support. It may fall down, it may get hurt. So should the child think that the mother is cruel, just punish me and get angry on the mother? No. The child will understand that my mother wants me to walk on my two legs and make me independent. So it will appreciate the mother. You may be also knowing the example of the giraffe. I think it's this country, Africa, is of the giraffe. So when the baby is born, just it falls from the womb of the mother giraffe, and it is just flat on the ground. Even the placenta and that liquid umbilical cord, everything is there. It will be cleaning. But because of that placenta and that umbilical cord and all that external things, the smell will go to long distances, and the carnivorous animals can get the scent of those things and start coming, that the young baby is born, easy to hunt the baby. So the carnivorous animals like hyena, then lion and other things, fox, they will come, they may attack the baby which is sleeping, and it will kill it. What will the mother do? It cannot allow the baby to sleep. It has just been born, just born. What will the mother do? It will go and kick the baby. When one leg it will hold the baby and another leg it will kick it. The blow will be so hard. If we get the simple kick of the giraffe to ourselves on this body, we will have multiple fractures. That is the intensity of the kick. So the just born baby, just dropped from the womb, everything is there. The mother will clean it, and after that it will start kicking it. So much of kick, continuous kicks will it give to the baby, that each kick the baby will try to get up and stand up. It will fall down again. It cannot. Just born baby. Again the mother will kick and kick and kick. And then finally the baby will get up very quickly and stand up. Once the baby stand up, it is too tall and too strong, then no carnivorous animal can attack it. It is too long now. The hyena or the lion, they cannot jump and kill it now. It stand up. So the mother giraffe is doing that kicking to save the life of the. So will the baby giraffe get angry on the mother? Otherwise it will die. Likewise, there will be small punishments. There will be small drawbacks. So many things happen in our life. The Lord gives that, or Guru gives that, or the seniors or elders or father and mother gives us the scolding and punishment for our welfare, for our good. If a man without ego or who is a real spiritual aspirant, he can understand, then he will tell it's my good, and his devotion to the Guru, devotion to the Ishtadevata, to God, will increase. That's what happened in the life of Rani Rasmani. So we will study the same, I think, next Thursday, because now it's already time. We will stop our discussion and we will give the time for question and answer session now. If anybody has any question, if anybody has any doubt on the thing which we have discussed today, You can ask.
Namaste, Swamiji. Have a great day.
Namaste, Muneshji. Anybody, any question or any doubts?
Maharaj, Ash here from Bangalore.
Yes, Mother, please tell.
Thank you very much for today's reading. It was very nice. It's like as if I felt like we are going through, along with the Guru, we are experiencing all the burning sensation and the Ganga dip which he takes and everything. You are reading it so well. It feels like we are going along with him. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Yes, you need not have the burning sensation, Mother, but the Lord has done for us. He is protecting us. That's all. So that we will not have all those things.
Yes, Maharaj. And you have been reassuring everyone about it again and again. Thank you for that also, Maharaj.
Yes, we should not get that fear phobia that we may get it. In reality, it will not come. It's only for them. They have all suffered that for our sake, so that we will not have it.
Yes, Maharaj. And the compassion of their heart is like enormous. We have to be so much in gratitude towards them, Maharaj.
So that's the only thing we can do. We can worship them with devotion and serve their children. That's all.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
The poor people, the diseased, the rogi, the uneducated, they are all children of the Lord, Avatar Purushas. So we can show our gratitude to the Lord by serving the poor people.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mother. Yes, Mother. Oh. Any other questions? Any other doubts? So I think there are no questions or doubts.
Pranam, Maharaj.
Pranam. Anil, you can
Maharaj,
tell.
Maharaj, how Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, how Master got the name Sri Ramakrishna?
I can't hear. There is some disturbance. I'm not. You are not audible. I can't hear you. Can you be a little louder?
Maharaj, how Sri Ramakrishna got the name Sri Ramakrishna?
How Sri Ramakrishna got name Ramakrishna? There are so many versions of it, because the father and mother knew that he has come from Vishnu, and all the incarnation was of Rama and Krishna were the same person who had come this time. So the father himself named later on by calling Ramakrishna. That is one version. And so some people tell that afterwards, because Ramakrishna used to tell the same people who had come earlier as Rama and Krishna or other thing, Parashurama, whoever, that avatars, it's the same being. In this time, in this body, it has come as Ramakrishna, he used to tell. So because of that also it might have come. So, but many people tell that even the parents were also calling him as Ramakrishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Pranam.
Okay. Namaste. Any other question or any other doubt? Okay, I'll conclude with the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.